Alrighty guys, more videos now for our work in Blender. Now, one of you guys had a question, Jesus, about the tweak tool not working. Now you notice the tweak tool is working in my videos. I was actually recording those videos in Blender 2.81. I hadn't actually downloaded the newest version, which is Blender 2.82a, which is what a lot of you guys have downloaded. Usually you can go back in there and find the backlog of it. It could be a little tricky. Believe it or not, though, you can actually fix it, though. Right? So if we actually go to Edit, Preferences, the key map section, right? So it's the same key map section that we've seen before, right? It's where you can turn industry compatible on, right? It's kind of up here as one of your options. Now you'll notice there is an area called 3D View. And in 3D View, there's something called 3D, maybe it's not in this one. I'm trying to think of where it's actually at. It was in there in the last one. Let's see here. Trying to remember where that's at. Actually, there it is. Okay. Mesh menu. So 3D View, Mesh, and you'll see that there is a 3D tweak tool area here, right? So this actually gives you some controls for the 3D tweak tool. Now, you're not really going to see it right here in this one, just because I kind of already deleted it out. But let's say if I open up Mesh Global View, you'll often see something like these, right? Where it'll say this, mouse, and an X, right? And what you'll do is you'll see a couple of interesting ones in the 3D Mesh tool. You'll see kind of a cursor one and then a move one. What I did is I got rid of those and I created a new one, right? So you can actually create a new one, believe it or not, right? So one of the things you can always do is, like I said, you can go in here, you can get rid of the other two that are there, right? Go on the X's to get rid of them, and you can add a new one. And when you add a new one, what I did is I went in here and I typed in 3dview.select, right? And then just kind of made sure mouse left was all there, which usually is a bit of fault. And then I put deselect on nothing on there, right? So basically you'll just go to Edit, Preferences, the key map area where your industrial compatible is to turn on. That makes it work a lot like Maya. And then I open up the 3D View, Mesh, 3D View Tool Tweak, and then in this case I want this one here, but usually you'll see these little X's because you can kind of, the triangle kind of opens them up, right? And what I did is I got rid of the default ones that are there. I got rid of both those X's, and what I did is I added a new one, kind of gave it the name Select, and then I typed in here View 3D Select, so it knows what to find, what actual command it knows to find. And then I made sure to turn deselect nothing on, right? And that should actually basically fix this if you want to. So if I go to the tweak tool, you'll now see that your tweak tool works like your tweak tool like before. So believe it or not, kind of cool that Blender allows you to do that. It did take me a little bit to figure it out, but I put some screenshots up, I think, for Jesus, but here I just want to make sure to kind of point out, hey, it's there, right? You just have to do a little bit of tinkering, right, to kind of set it back because they changed its functionality. But you can kind of change it back, right? You just need to kind of do those other things. What I did is I went back to the 2.81 and I looked at exactly what it looked like in there and basically recreated that scenario inside of Blender 2.88. But I am actually working in Blender 2.88. So what I wanted to do outside of just that, I just want to make sure that some of you guys that really want to use Tweak Tool, you can use Tweak Tool, right? You don't have to. You can use Move, Rotate, and Scales. Those will always work pretty well. But the Tweak Tool can kind of be pretty neat. And I like it for lots of little shape tweaking. So I just want to show you guys how you could fix that, because it is actually fixable. Blender does have that functionality in there. It's just they changed it a little bit for 2.8a, which is a little annoying because when you see a tweak tool, you expect to do tweaking, but not a hard fix. All right. So what I really want to do for today's video is I want to show you guys how to make the feet, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to hit 3 for face mode. Remember, it's right up here though, right? And everything should still be on, right? Your modifier for your mirror should be on. Your modifier for your subdivisional surface should be on. Remember, we did do a first smooth, right? It's kind of one of the things you can do is you can actually build this up, and as long as your viewport's set to 1, when you hit apply, it gets rid of this, but it also smooths it once, right? So keep that in mind. I usually like having my modifiers on in the blue. And like I said, if you click on the add a modifier little pull down here, you'll see that the mirrors in subdivision of surfaces in here for smooth preview basically. And you'll see that there is the mirror, which is right there, right? And these can give you options to pick which axis you want to mirror on, how far you can pull the seam away before it pops open. Not quite as good as Maya at this stuff, but it's not bad. Once you get it set up, it takes a little more work to get set up, but it works reasonably well. And just keep in mind when things like this one, kind of turn on the full low-res cage for your smooth mesh. Remember, you go back to watch those earlier videos, right? Those videos are still up. Those links are there. It's YouTube. If you need to go back and watch previous videos, watch the whole video, guys, right? Don't just ignore it. I'm showing you how to build the troll properly step by step, right? So in this case, we want to be in face mode, right? And remember, as long as you're in edit mode, right, which you can see I can click on this little pull down menu here. Edit mode really sets you into edit mode. 4 sets you back to object mode, but 1 really is just vertex mode, and then 2 is edge, 3 is face, 4 is object. Although you'll notice you do have kind of your outliner here, right? Right up here is your outliner. There's your cube, right? In this case, we want to be in face mode, though. And what we want to do is we want to go down here and select these faces. Now remember, you have different selection tools, right? You can, of course, just left-click and then shift left-click to select. But there is, if you hold down your left mouse button on the kind of very top box here, there is a circle select, right? And that is your equivalent to drag select, right? C will toggle you through these, though. Actually, I think I set it to something different now, but you can set these to different stuff, right? So remember, if you want to, you turn that on, right-click on it, assign shortcut. I'm going to hit Tab to kind of make it like, so I'll go back to kind of, say, select box, right? And if I hit Tab, you see how it kind of turns on circle mode just like Mudbox, or Maya does, right? So pretty easy to set up your own quick keys for that stuff, right? All right. Now in this case, we want to extrude, right? And of course, you can start setting your own quick keys for these things, but if you click on the right mouse button, since we're in face mode, it brings up all the things you can do to face. And that includes extrude faces. So we can just hit extrude. There we go. And you can kind of drag them a little bit to pull them out. And then if you want, you can hit W for move, right? And remember, middle mouse button automatically does your view move, right? It automatically moves view, which is that center one there. Of course, you have squares, just like you would inside of Maya, and the handles. So the nice thing is you see how Blender in its current state really, particularly in turning industry compatible on, already works quite a bit like Maya. Now in this case, I'm going to maybe select these bottom faces here and hit R for scale. Scale down on the kind of blue handle to flatten out a little bit. I gotta switch to edge mode. W for move, just to select that edge. If you move it down a little bit, just to do a little bit of shaping to the feet there, right? 3, of course, is faces. And you notice it still remembers that selection usually. So you can kind of keep adjusting from the different angles. Maybe a little bit of rotate. Do a little bit of view rotate there, right? And what that does, that extrusion gives us kind of the start for the actual troll foot, right? Remember, you just hit Q to go back to your regular selection tool, quick key. W for move, right? So they're all right here. Move, rotate, scale. Your selection tools and your tweak tool being right in there, right? They're all in there, right? So just keep that in mind, right? And I actually set T for my tweak tool. Actually, I set the transform. It's a little weird. I'm going to set it something different eventually. We just extrude those faces out. That starts to give us our actual foot, right? Now, at this point, what I want to do is I want to give myself a little bit more geometry on this guy, right? I really kind of want an extra edge loop up the face, right? And through the pec chest area. And I want kind of a third toe. So remember, if you hit 2 for edge mode, you can double left click on an edge, and it selects the edge loop, right? And one of the things, if you right click, and you can right click anywhere, is you'll notice that you do have a lot of tools here, right? It's an edge loop, so if we wanted to, we could loop cut slide, right? We could do edge creases. So we have some options there. Offset edge slide is kind of cool because what it does is it kind of takes that edge loop down the center and just kind of breaks it up, right? Now, this center edge loop, we kind of want to get rid of, right? So what you can do is you can double click, because when we did that, it actually creates 3 new edge loops here, right? So that edge loop, and that edge loop are all created here. And I didn't want all of those. I just wanted 2 of them. So I select that center one, and if you right click, or sorry, backspace or delete, right? When you hit delete, it gives you the options. And we can pick edges. That didn't do it the way we wanted to. So delete, and we want it to actually dissolve edges. There we go. So usually you want dissolve, right? So when you right click, that brings up your kind of modeling operations. Delete brings up your deleting operations, right? And so in this case, we wanted to dissolve edges, not delete edges, right? So dissolve edges. And I just want to make sure you guys know that that's there. Like Maya has control delete. Blender has all of this stuff, right? Technically, of course, the edge functionality, you will see there is edge bevel weight. There are some bevel tools in here, of course, as well. But in this case, that one worked pretty well for us because it got me to show you how to dissolve edge loops if you needed to, right? So remember, if you need to take an edge loop out, double click on it, delete, but don't delete edges. It'll do that weird stuff, right? Just do your delete, dissolve edges, and that'll take the edge loop with it properly. So remember, all of this stuff is here, and it's really just things like right-click to bring up the menus when you're in the edge face or vertex, and delete will bring up your deleting features. So overall, once you get used to Blender, particularly the 2.8 series, strong workflow. As we can see, all the basics work the same here too as well. So now you'll see we have 3 toes, right? And we're not actually going to use these all because we're making a troll, but I want to show you how to set up 5 toes, right? So after we did that first smooth, that automatically gave us 2 of them. We wanted to add an extra edge loop up here, which by the way, you could have just done a loop cut slide, right, to put the edge loop up there. But I want to show you the offset edge feature, right? So I kind of want to make sure to show you kind of that there is offset edge, and I want to make sure to show you, like I said, the dissolve. And that gives us 3. I want 2 more though. So I'm going to go back to face mode, right? 3 for faces. I'm already in circle select, right? But remember, left click up here, circle select, and I can just left click drag, right? And then hold on shift, right? Remember shift adds. And you see how that's selecting both sides, right? And you see we've got this whole side, the whole back, and this other side right here as well, right? So that's important. We want to have all of these selected for making our troll foot. The side, the back, the other side. And I'm going to right click. And this time, instead of just regular extrude face, I'm going to extrude face along normals, right? And if you go up or down, right, it moves these faces along the normal direction. We've seen this before, right? It's how our thicken works. We've seen it occasionally works cool for some other modeling features. So extrude along face normals, right? And that extrudes along normal direction. And you'll notice what this does is it creates extra edge loops that we have now back here for the heel. So there's actually a heel shape starting to pop out. But you also see there's an extra 2 polygons here. It also makes our foot a little bit fatter on the bottom. Believe it or not, your feet are actually fatter on the bottom. So now you can actually see that we have, without creating a single n-gon, and only having the necessary stars, right, like this 5-star here, you're naturally going to have some 5 stars like here, 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 because of the branch structure, right? And creatures have branch structure. You naturally have some 5 stars on certain parts of your models. But you'll now see that we actually have what we need for our foot. Now, of course, we could do some further shaping, right? I could always select some faces here. Believe it or not, if you go to the select menu here, you will see there is a select more or less area. That's grow or shrink, right? And that's up and down arrow, right? So if I hit up arrow, it'll grow that. And of course, I can hold on shift, do a little more circle select. R for scale, we can scale this in a little bit. Remember, middle mouse button does uniform scale, right? It scales that center one, which scales all 3. So that could be a great way to kind of make that whole entire back heel a little smaller. E for rotate, maybe do a little bit of view rotate. W for move, a little view move, right? Believe it or not, Maya's middle mouse button will do something similar, but not identical. right? It kind of uses the last selected handle. I think Blender got that idea from here, but they made it actually better than Maya, where they're like, well, you really usually don't want to use those handles. So they kind of said, hey, let's do it for uniform scale, view move, view rotate. And I love that in Blender. It's super cool. I think that's actually definitely an area where Blender was like, haha, Maya, right? So now, of course, we can keep tweaking and shaping. Of course, if I want to, I can switch back to my tweak tool. And remember, this is just the ability to kind of just left click drag. So instead of having to select it and then click again, right? Because even with the middle mouse button, you have to select, which is one click, and then middle mouse button, which is another click. That's 2 clicks, right? That's not terribly slow, but it is a bit slower than just being able to do it in one click, right? So the tweak tool is actually one of my favorite modeling tools. Actually, I love it. I use it in Maya all the time. I use it, we saw it a little bit on the spaceship, right guys? Remember you can hit 2 to switch to edge mode, and then it'll allow you to tweak edges. So I can come in here and I can kind of bring some of these edges up to kind of give us a little bit of the arch of the foot here, right? So we can start to tweak this a little bit more to get the shape closer and closer to what maybe we want for this. So of course you're going to keep shaping and keep refining the shapes, right? Rarely are your feet totally flat, so it's always a good idea to kind of come in here and do a bit of shaping to this. But still, this is a really great shaping tool, right? And in particular, these stages where it's still pretty low res can be quite effective. So your tweak tool is definitely one of my favorite shaping tools. Now, at this point, I'm going to save that really quick. I'm going to add a loop or two here and do a little more tweaking here, right? So I'm going to switch back to my regular selection tool, which is Q. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to do loop cut and slide. And I want to put an extra edge loop here, kind of in the ankle area, right? So there we go. Hit Q to turn that off. And I could double click on this edge loop, right? And this just double left click, just like it is in Maya, right? I'll hit R for scale, middle mouse button. We can start to scale in kind of that area a little bit, right? So we can easily come in here and start to double click these edge loops and hit R for scale to start to kind of pronounce these a little bit more, right? R for scale. This time I maybe want to scale out just this direction, right? And we can easily start to get a little bit more of kind of the shape there for that, right? I can switch back to face mode and W for move to maybe move this out a little bit to get a little bit more definition for the kneecap. Maybe even come up here, back to 2 for edge mode. Grab some of these edges. Middle mouse to kind of maybe bring the butt shape down a little bit more, right? Maybe out a little bit. If you want, remember tweak tool, right? So you can always kind of turn your tweak tool back on and do a little bit of shape tweaks here and there, just to kind of refine this a little bit. Maybe bring these guys up for the hips a little bit more. So remember, you're going to be doing this shaping, right? Remember in an earlier video, you saw me moving these edges kind of down and around to develop kind of these shapes a lot more, right? You can kind of see some of these edges come forward, some of them come in to kind of create some kind of rounding and definition. You don't want them too close, that starts to get too sharp, right? You see how your pectoral kind of starts to sweep down there a little bit. And of course, we can keep tweaking this stuff as we go along to refine it and really make it even nicer, right? So remember, building this stuff isn't just about putting edge loops in the proper places. That's important, but it is also very much about shape, right? So you're going to try to maybe, remember, kind of develop some pectorals with the shaping. You see I'm making sure to have kind of some difference in thickness and a little bit of arch to the leg there as well as to the back. You see how kind of the butt shape started coming down there a little bit, right? So remember, you want to really kind of do the shaping as you go as well, right? And you see the tweak tool can kind of be pretty cool at doing this, right? It can kind of really allow you to kind of push these forms just a little bit better. There we go, right? And the last thing I really wanted to do for this video was finish the foot off by creating some toes. So I'll just take Q for my regular selection tool. But remember, they're up here. And in this case, I'm going to make this guy have 2 toes because he's a troll. But what I am going to do, 3 for face, right? Remember the buttons are right here though. And I'm going to select those 2 faces. And I'm going to hit right click, right? Hold, click right mouse button, extrude faces. Bring that out a little bit. W for move, a little bit of middle mouse button to free move it, all right? Now in this case, see how it's slanted a little bit? Well, we fix that by moving them over so they don't slant as much, right? Remember, we can hit 2 for edge mode and double click on an edge loop. We can move that up. We can easily switch to our tweak tool if we wanted to. And so I can kind of tweak these guys down to kind of round it off and straighten the forms up a little bit. So remember, you really want to make sure to kind of keep these forms fairly square, particularly when you're in smooth preview. See how that kind of gives us a good starting point for that toe? Now, I could have done 5 toes, right? And that would have just been a single face for each one. Extrude, 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 and you have 5 toes. But the cool thing about the 5 toe structure is it works and gives you all of this great stuff back here. It gives you this stuff that you're going to need up here anyway, so it's super useful for the whole model. But at the end of the day, you can also kind of make big toes, as many toes as you want, right? So I'm just going to hit 3 for face. Select that face right there, right click, extrude faces. Bring that out a little bit. Hit W for move. And remember, I'm just using middle mouse button to do the free move, right? I honestly am loving that in Blender, right? Very cool. So middle mouse button, just do some free moves. And of course, if I want to, I could switch to the tweak tool again. And I could bring this up a little bit. Hit 2 for edges, so it goes back to edge mode. Unfortunately, I have not found a multi-component feature in Blender, which I do really like in Modo and Maya. So it's kind of one of the areas where I'm like, well, maybe Blender will add that eventually, or maybe I just don't know where it's at yet, right? I know Blender, get to know Blender fairly well, but you know, don't know it quite as well as Maya and Modo, which I use all the time. But it's really easy to switch back and forth with 1, 2, and 3 between your selection types. So still actually works pretty well. Now in this case, I do like to give myself a little more edge loops here so the toes can have a little more development. So right click. Make sure we're in edge mode though, right? 2 for edge mode, right click, because then you'll get the edge specific stuff like loop cut. Let's go to loop cut. I'll just put an extra edge loop right in here, right? Let me do that again. Loop cut. Remember, if you left click drag, right, instead of just left click, but if you just left click, it automatically puts it in the middle. If you left click drag, it actually lets you slide it. So I can kind of maybe put that one back there. And then we could right click again, loop cut slide, put that one up there. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Loop cut slide, left click drag, put that one back there. Loop cut slide, put that one right there. All right. And then of course we can go in here and do some shaping, right? Because these are going to be a little bit bunched up on each other. So I'll double click on this edge loop. W for move tool. What I can do is I can kind of move that forward a little bit. I can double click on this one. I can move this forward and up a little bit to give it a little bit of arch. Maybe even a bit of an R for scale to scale it in a little bit, right? But you see how that actually gives us, and you see I might even go in here and do a little bit of tweak shaping here in a minute. But what this does is this is going to give us that ability to get that shape a bit nicer. So double click, double left click on an edge, middle mouse to move it, R for scale, middle mouse to uniform scale. And of course we can go in here and refine the shapes even more, right? So if I hit 3 for face mode, I can grab these 2 faces. Remember shift for add selections, W for move to move that down, probably select that one, W to move down. And you see how that shape automatically starts to come in there? Remember, I set tab to circle select, right? So I can just left click drag. It is a little touchy sometimes, kind of grabs a little bit more than it needs to sometimes. W for move, middle mouse button, just to kind of straighten that up a little bit. See how it's got that slant? You don't want that. So I'm moving it to kind of, so these are kind of look more kind of straight. And then this one, probably just a little bit of tweaking. Go to tweak mode, 2 for edges. And I could easily just come in here and I could just move some of these edges kind of in to round it off a little bit. That one down. Maybe that one forward. You notice how I'm rotating around my view, right? Remember, Alt left mouse button will rotate your views. And I could easily just come in here and kind of tweak some of these edges to kind of get that shape more kind of where I want it to be, right? get much closer to kind of the form I wanted. And that's going to give you your feet for the troll. And if you wanted, you could totally build the full kind of, five-toed structure. If you want to do like 2 toes like this, you can. If you want to do 2 big toes, and this one has 2 extrusions, you can. If you want to do 3 toes. That's the cool thing about that kind of section right there, is you have that ability, right? I'm just going to do, I think that'll work pretty well there. Yeah. There is a cool feature that I want to make sure you guys see that's neat. If I go to 2 for edges, and I double click on this edge loop, if you go to the select menu up here, there is something called select loops, select inner loop region. What that does, you see how it selects the bottom loops below that? And then I can middle mouse to maybe drag that down a little bit. That's kind of neat. Maya does not have that. Moto does. Maya does not have that. Blender has it. Very cool feature. That can allow us to maybe make our legs a little bit longer there. So that'll be a great place to think to stop for this video.